the town of Canandaigua Republican Committee approached me and asked if I would
There she
um,
is.
Hi, Sarah Linda.
advise them on which cemetery to decorate with wreaths or Wreaths Across America this coming fall. So I said, and they had thought Hun, because everybody kind of knows Hun, and obviously we all are well aware that people are kind of in the dark on some of our other cemeteries. They might know the one that's nearest their home. Maybe they don't even know that. So I advised them that Hun would be a great place, but they should also consider Academy. And then I said, if you're going to do that, you need to work with the cemetery committee. But I bring it up here because of all the work you two have done on Academy and all the work he's done on the Hun Cemetery, and I thought you'd all want to know. And I advise, and then I said, you know what, we've got to put that out there so that other organizations, i.e. the Democrat Committee, the VFW, and the Legion.
And I have spoken with Dave Sauter, who tells me Senator Helming will help fund this.
Yes.
Oh, good story.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
So,
and sometimes scout troops will help also.
Yeah.
You can get
and that's great. So, and I also advised them, you know, this was just like spitball advice though, that they may want to put it out publicly so that if somebody has an ancestor that's in one of those cemeteries, and it could be any of our cemeteries, that person could say, hey, you know what, I personally would like to pay for the wreath for, you know, great Uncle Fred.
right.
So, and I also suggested that they not only talk to you, but that they talk to the Pine Bank folks, because we don't want Pine Bank.
To feel like that.
Yeah, and
You
even
don't
though
wanna
they
fund
have,
it either. Yeah,
I mean, that could get difficult, because I think I saw that they have 132 veteran graves, and that count is a few years old, and undoubtedly it's gone up as we have some Korean and Vietnam era veterans that are added to the cemetery.
Where is that?
Pine Bank. There were 130 some odd veteran graves.
Yeah.
and I think the wreaths cost around 12 each.
15.
Yeah, 10, 12 each,
15.
15.
Yeah, and with some cemeteries, like Rich's dad is buried up in Massachusetts in a cemetery, they do not have theirs as grave specific because it's such a huge cemetery. Fountain Hill.
You
where
set it
our
on
parents are, they can do grave specific.
Okay,
And that's right on the Wreaths Across America website when you go to buy
Okay.
wreaths from
So-
them.
don't be surprised if you two get wrapped into this too. Pam Rushak is the lead from the Republican committee, along with Dave to a lesser extent, and Pam. So, and who from the Democrat committee that has even gotten pushed out there enough yet, or from Legion or VFW, but I mean, it will involve peripherally the history team, but I bring it up because of the work the three of you, if you're not aware, like, so Ray did a ton of work over on the Hun Cemetery, both restoration, beautification, all that kind of thing.
I
Richard
can
and
talk
Donna
to
have,
someone on the Democratic. I can speak to someone on the Democrat committee.
would you?
I would.
Because I don't want any time to go by, Karen, and have anybody's feelings get hurt or.
Yeah, I can do
No.
that.
Actually, Boughton Hill does a Legion, and then they have
That's all right.
scouts help them,
I can look
because
it
they
up.
do the Village of Victor and St. Patrick's Church, and then Boughton Hill.
And that's
They
really
do
nice.
3.
So no one's committed a specific
Nope,
amount.
nope. They've talked,
I don't
they know
want
the
them
amount, like you said, they have a rough idea of the price per wreath.
Yeah,
And Senator Helming, I don't know. I mean, I know Pam well, and I haven't thought to ask her. I would assume she's probably encouraging other communities too within her district.
Nice.
Because I think she was contacted through the legislature, by
Oh.
Wreaths Across America. I think they came to probably the members of the legislature and said, hey, would you push this out to your communities? So I think
so you've
that's how
spoken
that all
with someone
started.
on the Republican?
What's that?
You've spoken with someone on the
Yeah,
Republican?
Pam Rushak.
Well, I think.
But that was only
I
like a
think to
week
make
ago.
it
So
fair would be
Yeah,
a
well-
letter addressed to both. So they know each one's getting it.
yeah,
to avoid that stuff last year.
Yep. So Pam is,
I can do
But
that.
y-
I
and
know
you-
Pam is
and you
working
know you
with-
have to coordinate with the Wreaths Across America up in Maine.
and that's what,
Columbia Falls, Maine.
yep, and so
Yeah.
Pam
'Cause I get
Helming
their
and Pam
emails.
Rushak have both spoken, and I think they've started to work on talking to Reads Across America. To fit, and because there's different levels apparently that cemeteries or organizations can opt in. And don't ask me for the details.
Well,
but-
I can save all the rest of this.
So
for the
this is
cemetery
gonna-
committee.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is gonna be the two of you
It's up
primarily.
there. I got it.
Got it.
It's gonna be cemetery committee more than anybody.
It
And,
is.
and you guys in the history team will just kind of be there to,
Mhm.
oh yeah, no, you don't want to miss this grave, or that one was very special, or, you know.
Well, I'm on the committee too.
Yeah, so
So you
you're
got
right, so you're a great
cemetery.
liaison between the
Yeah,
two
I can
committees,
help.
committee and the team.
Okay, well, I gotta go. Sorry. I guess I got
Well,
my
before-
assignment already.
There you go.
We've got until September, I guess, is like kind of like
Okay.
when the organizations would have to have their order for the Reeds in. Does that sound right, Donna?
Usually
somewhere in
early
there.
December, because it's always held the third Saturday in December.
Right, no, but I mean the order for the
for
Reeds, I think
I
was
think,
September.
well, actually, I don't know, because we've
Okay.
contributed as late as November.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, that's good
So
news
how
too.
they figure that out, I don't know.
Right.
Maybe they
Because,
don't.
because you have trucks that go all the way across the United States
Oh,
too. In last year, there were over 3,700 sites across the United States that
Wow.
participated.
Wow.
And over, what was it, over 1.3 million people that volunteered.
Now, the
That's
one
impressive.
cautionary I have,
Yeah.
Karen, for the cemetery committee and for the history team is this. If you all recall, there were protests about it this past Christmas. Yep, there were people who said it was sectarian, that it was a Christian thing and that it shouldn't be done because it was religious and it was on government property.
It doesn't matter
I know,
what.
but we just have to have an awareness that,
Say the heck with the wokeness, get out there and just honor the people that honor the.
right,
And what you, and what you do with Wreaths Across America is what the group that works at Boughton Hill does is they send out the plaques that can get a wreath on it, because some can't. And if it has the Star of David or some Jewish designation, you just thank the veteran for his service at his or her stone. You don't lay a wreath there. But what you do when you lay a wreath, you say, so-and-so, thank you for your service, and then you lay the wreath on the.
and I would think
Stone.
that,
so,
you know,
except for the-
obviously,
Except for Jewish.
the town cemeteries won't have that problem. Pine Bank might. Pine Bank might have Jewish veterans.
Is that the one on?
In
West
Cheshire,
End?
Cheshire.
Oh, in Cheshire. Yeah.
Well,
but we don't own
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
since she's got to run, let,
Yep,
let us do.
Yep.
what we have to
Okay,
do.
thank you.
Before-
yeah, that's enough.
before-
You're
before-
absolutely right, Richard. I'm done with that.
I want-
Well, speaking of people who have to run, I'm not going to be able to sit in on the whole meeting, but I did want to give a report about how things stood with the survey. And I also would like to listen on how you're coming on Academy Cemetery. So
You do on,
I don't know what the agenda is or if anybody's keeping track, but if this
I'm
is a good
taking
time,
notes.
can I just give you a few minutes about the survey and what's going on?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I think that I sent to the whole history team a couple of weeks ago a copy of the 200-page full survey. Is that right? Did I do that? Okay.
I've got
So
it.
if you wanted to, you've had a chance to look over that is the first draft, and it's obviously not anything like the final version, but the first draft of the information that they have collected, but just in the condensed form. There is also the long form in which each property occupies maybe 3 to 5 pages with a lot of white space. It's not 3 to 5 packed pages, and it includes several more photographs of each property, many of which are photographs that were lifted out of the assessor's website. So anyway, what you saw is something that's like the first draft of the paper report that we're going to end up with at the conclusion of the project. And that's the one that there will be a hard copy at Town Hall. We'll give a hard copy to the Wood Library. We'll give one to the Historical Society. So for people who are just looking for a general overview of historic architecture in the town of Canandaigua, that's the document that they'll come to. And then anybody in the public also will be able to get access to the full information online, either through the State Historic Preservation website or through our own Town of Canandaigua website. So there are other ways of doing it, but this is what the hard copy will be kind of built upon. So Ray and Leif and I have all gone through the 200-page document in various levels of detail. I admit I didn't read the property descriptions word for word because that's where the most narrative language is, and I just didn't want to take the time to do all that. So I'm hoping that those are accurate. They looked fairly accurate to the extent that I did review them. I did review, I did take a look at the single photograph, which was selected as the one that's on the cover page, and also at the statement of significance, which is the box that is down below the photograph. And that's where it tells you why this property was selected for the survey, what's important about it. So having looked over those things, we had a meeting with our consultants yesterday, the folks from the Landmark Society and also from Bureau Architecture, which is the sort of master consultant who farmed out the work then to Landmark Society. We had a good conversation about it. All three of us, Ray and Leif and I think agreed that the biggest problem with the initial draft was the photographs, both in terms of the quality of them. Well, mainly in terms of the quality of them, but the secondary thing was that a lot of the photographs were totally unacceptable. They had to be redone. And fortunately, the consultants kind of agreed with us, and in fact they were aware of that. And in the interim, since the 1st of January, when we got this report, they have gone out and retaken some of the photographs, even though it's not the ideal time of year, but it is a time of year that addresses what was a major problem in many of the photographs, which was they were taken during the summer and there are leaves on the trees and you can't see the building. So that's a big one. So we're expecting big improvements in the area of photos. In terms of the selection of properties, what properties are included in the survey, there are a total of 263. Out of those, about 100 have been identified by the consultants as potentially eligible for the National Register. And the other 163 are identified as being not eligible for the National Register because of alterations or condition or this, that, and the other thing, but they are identified as having local significance. So on the report that you have to review, those are identified as not eligible, and the other ones are identified as eligible. We had some discussion about how that term not eligible is one we would like to avoid because it kind of is misleading. If a layman is looking at this and the first thing they see is that it says not eligible, they're going to conclude, oh, well, we can do anything we want with this property. It has no historic significance. Well, that's not true. It's just that it does not eligible in their context means it's not eligible for the National Register. That means it's not in the upper crust of the historic properties. It's in the lower crust. It's in the larger body of things that are significant, just not as significant as you need to be to get up to the National Register. So we talked to them about whether we could use a different term for that, maybe locally significant or maybe undetermined, which is a term that is actually built into the state system they're using as the platform for entering this data. And it may be that we have to end up with undetermined. Maybe we can change that, I don't know. But anyway, didn't want that to be misleading to you guys or anybody else who reviews it. So on the selection of properties, we did generally agree with both their determination of what was eligible and also which properties should be included in the survey. We had a few areas of disagreement. I think there are 5 that they left out that we suggested that they reconsider and let them know that we think these 5 should be included. I doubt that there will be a whole lot of argument about that. There were also a few that I thought anyway were in there, but really didn't deserve to be in there. And so I included that in my comments. I know I'm not going to freak out if they disagree and they say, well, let's just leave it in anyway. There's no harm in having it in there, even if it may not make the most sense. I wouldn't swear that there aren't properties that should be in there that are not, because of the way that these guys collected their data. Because for properties that are not easily visible from the road or not visible from the road at all, they did not see these properties. They had a contract provision that they were not going to go onto private property. So for those cases, they relied on photographs from the assessor's office, which in some cases are photographs taken from a boat from the lakeside. And in other cases, they just, didn't look at them, didn't know about them. And so there may be some that we wish had been included in the future, but it will be possible to add those at a future date once we identify them. If something comes up and somebody says, hey, why wasn't this included in the historic properties survey? And, the answer is yes, it should have been. There's nothing to say that this has to stay exactly the way it is. There is a provision for future updates and tweaks to the survey data. It's not easy to do. It's not something we can do, every month. It's something we'll have to sort of collect up a bunch of corrections and then submit them to the State Historic Preservation Office and wait until somebody on the staff has a chance to review them. And, it's going to take time. So we probably wouldn't want to do that more than once every year or two, but at least it can be done. So let's see, we talked about photo quality quite a bit. We talked about this issue of access, and for those properties that they do know about, but they did not get a good photograph of because they wouldn't go on private property or couldn't go on private property, as they say. I pushed for, let's do our best to get a good photograph anyway. And I'm willing to make the effort to attempt to photograph those properties by going there, knocking on the door, asking for permission to take a photograph. And if nobody's home, wouldn't bother me to just take the picture anyway. Although that's kind of a policy thing. And if the town feels that that's not the right thing to do, then I guess we just have to live with the poor quality photographs we have. But I think it's worthwhile making the extra effort to try to get much better photographs than, the assessor's photographs are out of date and they are not professional quality. There are also some photographs that Ray and his colleagues on the barn survey took, but again, those are at least 6 or 8 or sometimes even more years old and not current and not professional quality again. So I think it's that's the single area of the survey that I think needs the most additional work. So I'm willing to spend some time on it, but I'm not going to be back in the area until mid to late March. If there's anybody else that's willing to help with that effort, that would be wonderful. And as I said, the Landmark Society themselves are already making a certain amount of effort. So I'm hoping that a lot of those issues will be resolved and we will be able to boil it down to something under 50 properties that we need to make the extra effort to help out with the photographs. So more to come on that one. We talked a little bit about the possibility of National Register nominations for the Hamlet of Cheshire, or thematic nominations, meaning that you select out a bunch of properties that are scattered around the town, but they're all connected in terms of a theme, such as 19th century well-preserved lakefront cottages, or early farmsteads where the buildings, outbuildings, and so on are still intact, and ask them to provide a sort of a conclusion discussion after having done the survey to address whether there's potential for National Register nomination along those lines, even though a lot of these buildings would probably never end up being individually listed. So hopefully that will be part of the final report. So Ray and Leaf, you were in on the meeting. If there's anything I've missed, pipe up and let me know. But basically the next steps are, I made out a list of comments, property by property, and Ray did the same thing. They're in two different formats, but I've already sent them mine, and Ray is gonna finish up his and then get that to the consultants after it's scanned or copied. So we've got a record of it.
Okay, to add to it, I've got two things that I will pass around. One is the list of all the eligible ones, and the other is a list of not eligible. So you can take a look at it.
I just want to add, while you guys are sitting in the room, and while Patty's here, I wish Karen was still here, that, and I'm glad Cody's here. So the work that Barrow / Landmark has done, you know, it's been fraught with all those pitfalls of changes of personnel and all that. But the work that Sarah Linda and Ray did in essentially editing and triaging that report is going to be huge, because I don't know what we would have gotten. And maybe Sarah Linda will be more forgiving of them than I would. There was kind of a good cop, bad cop thing going on yesterday with those folks. She was bad cop and I was good cop, but I'll be honest and say the young lady that they had, who I think actually put it together, I'm kind of, and this is just guess, that she's not done this before, okay? And her supervisor was there, and then Jennifer Ahrens from Barrow was there. They zoomed in. And Sarah Linda was able to, because of her professional background, really like drill down and show them what was missing and what needed to be fixed. I could have given them, hey, you need to turn that image because it's 90 degrees off, right? I mean, you see that, right?
I'm noticing that, yes.
Richard, don't look. The photographer in you will be like absolutely appalled, okay? I mean, I'm a fair photographer, not like you, and I was appalled. And but Sarah Linda's efforts, I think, will send them back to fix everything. And while Landmark is, of course, concerned about like the importance of our inventory to the state, I could give a hoot about the state. I see this inventory as really, really imperative to the town. And so what Sarah Linda and Ray have done to get it right, to make them get it right, is going to be huge, because that's going to allow our planning office. I mean, there's 260 homes, you know, that allows our planning office to not only use Encore to go look at a site as it looks what the last couple of years. But then this will give them even more information, which is going to be really useful to the planning board and to Shauna as they, so it's a real tool. And I just don't want to, you know, Sarah Linda's and Ray did that. And I don't think Landmark necessarily sees it the way we see it. They see it through their lens.
Sarah Linda, the young gal that Leaf was mentioning that he thought maybe hadn't done this before, is she the young gal that was kind of like an intern when we had a meeting with them a while ago? She introduced herself with she, he, it, they, whatever.
Right. No, that's not the one. The
Okay.
one who's done the most of the legwork is named Holly Glore. She's blonde. She was sitting down at that far end of the table at that meeting that we had back in July or August.
Okay.
And she you know, she's done I think a remarkably good job under not a heck of a lot of good supervision and some background. I don't know if I don't think she's ever
young,
done it.
right? I mean,
Yeah, you know, she's pretty young, but on the whole, I think she did as well as she could. And I think the areas where we can really improve on it in addition to the photographs are in the statement of significance, which in that copy is the text box that's been pasted in down at the lower left of each of the ones. In the format that automatically spits out from the state system, there is no statement of significance on that short form. And I think that's really a terrible mistake on the part of the state, whoever did the formatting, because most people who look at this, the reason they're looking at it is to find out, is this property significant? And if so, why? And the rest, unless you have that statement of significance, that's exactly what that statement says. It says, why was this property included in the survey? What's important about it? And here, if we know anything special about it, about the history of it, here it is in a nutshell, in just a sentence or two. So there are a lot of cases where we,
Yeah, right.
where we do know some history about it, but it didn't make it into their text. They did go to a lot of sources. They read Ray's books. They read Ray's list of 100-year-old houses. They read the Macintosh history. They read the first phase of the report. So, there's a lot that went into it, but not everything. And Ray's annotations, I'm hoping, will help to fill in a lot of that. And mine did too, to a certain extent. Like, for instance, those illustrations that are in the 1876 county history, that includes images of 8 different properties in the town, really nice ones. Like there's one of the yacht club building, there are several farms around town. And we also have a lot of good historic images. And I asked them if we supplied those images, if they would put them into the survey, not necessarily on that cover page, but at least in the backup pages, so that when somebody's looking up this information online, they'll see that image, because that's just a huge amount of historical, benefit to the project. So they said, yes, they certainly would attempt to include that. So that kind of thing, I think, will kind of help flesh it out. But I have to say, even with all its flaws, just leafing through this thing, I'm really pleased with the fact that we've got it all together in one document now. And while it's not complete, and it certainly can and will be improved, this is going to be a really nice tool for not only for the development office, which will be using it really virtually every time a property comes in with an application for demolition or development, but other people who are just curious about history in the town of Canandaigua will have an opportunity to leaf through this and will really be impressed at the quality of historic buildings that we have. So the number as well as the quality. So
I think the problem, and again, I'm guessing, Sarah Linda, you may have a better sense of this. I think it was a workflow and a data management issue. I think, I think Holly was probably just overwhelmed with the workload and the data, and trying to coalesce it all into a usable, functional document. I think Sarah and Ray gave her the tweaks and feedback that she needed to kind of go page by page and, turn the image 90 degrees, replace the image, and Sarah Linda's right. I mean, the language with regards to whether a property is locally significant or whether it's ineligible or eligible, it was pretty cut and paste, and it was I don't want to say arbitrary, but it lacked some of the nuance, so I think Sarah Linda kind of showed them that, maybe you don't need to go all in on, yes, it's going to get torn down tomorrow, so hopefully it's going to look.
Well, you'd think before they submitted it, they would have turned the pictures around. I mean, that's very visible.
You know what?
It
That
doesn't take much.
And Donna, this is where I went. It reminded me of a college student who was on a deadline,
Yeah.
and they were going to get a 0 if they didn't turn something in. So it was better to turn in something that was incomplete and say, "See, we're working on it,"
Uh-huh. than
to say, "Yeah, we've got nothing for you."
I'd be interested in if this format that they've got here for displaying all these things on the page, if that's the final type of format that they're going to be using, with all the paragraphs in boxes and the pictures in boxes and everything else.
We had that conversation too, and about the waste of white
Because it
space.
looks like hell, basically, and you should really put this into a page layout program.
Paginated
where they can
and
have
laid out.
word wrap around the pictures to conserve space and everything else to highlight stuff. and
What-
where they can put in captions underneath the pictures if necessary.
Unfortunately, Jennifer Aarons had to go attend another meeting, so we didn't get to hear her inputs at the end of it. And I'd be kind of curious, because I know you probably interact with her, Sarah Linda. So I'd be very curious to hear Jennifer's inputs, because, they didn't want, I'm sure they're not thrilled to see, but I think it's gonna all come together. I think it's all gonna get fixed.
It's a start.
And whether it'll look good or not, Richard,
It'll take time to do it.
Well, yeah, one of the things that they made clear way back at the beginning of the project, and remember, this is a project that was paid for 80% by New York State effectively. It came through the Preservation League, but it was state money. And so the State Historic Preservation Office, which is the group that, handles all these National Register nominations, really their preferences rule. And they developed this system, which is called Trekker, for the purpose of people of making a quick determination on whether things are National Register eligible or not. So it used to be that Bureau and all the other consultants had their own format for doing the final reports when they did a survey, but a decision was made shortly before our grant was approved, or maybe it was within a year or so before, that all surveys that had state money spent on them had to use this Trekker program. And that means that there were very, very strict limitations on things like the format of printout, because now Bureau in their proposal did not allow any time for page layout or any of those things, because the whole idea was you enter the data directly in Trekker, and then at the end you just push a button and Trekker spits out the final product. And they'd never done it before. We were the guinea pigs on this thing. Although the fact that our project took so long means that we're not the guinea pigs now. We're not the first one that's going to get the finished product, but we were one of the first ones where it was approved that we had to use Trekker. So this is just one of those bureaucratic things where you kind of get stuck in the gears, and it ends up being a great big headache. And I mean, the business of leaving out the statement of significance, I am going to personally take that as far up the chain as I can at SHPO, and I'm sure that they will not disagree that the significant statement ought to be put on the cover page, at least the first sentence of it or something like that. Just, they should, that's almost the most key thing to have in there, and to drop it out is just unacceptable. And I'll bet I can persuade them of that. It might take a few years. But
If
anyway.
anybody can, you can.
I will do my best.
It might be interesting to find out if that bureaucrat has any experience in this type of work.
or that could be really frustrating too. You might not get a good answer at all.
I'm sure the bureaucrat doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so the next step on this is they're going to take my comments and Ray's comments and deal with the photographs the best they can, and make the data changes. Then it will go to the SHPO reviewer, who will review it essentially to make sure that she's in agreement on which things are considered eligible and which ones are not eligible. And then we will get the next iteration of this. And I think at that point, it'll be, kind of an official submission to the town, and the town board will need to have an agenda item that will be to accept this and set a public hearing. And then, when that happens, I think the earliest it could be is maybe April, or the latest it could be might be June, July, something like that. I know they want to get it over with as fast as they can, but on the other hand, the photographs are gonna take some time. So anyway, if whoever is inspired to read this thing, any comments or typos or anything else that you might come up with, sooner rather than later, because once the ball is rolling in terms of it being this final or almost final report, it's going to get harder to make changes or make additions. So
Question. This is supposed to be to highlight the buildings on the property, correct?
yes, it is. And
So
in
in that respect, then maybe there should be some judicious cropping of some of these photographs where the house is just a dot on the landscape.
Exactly. That was the gist of
Yeah.
a lot of my comments, that cropping would be extremely useful here. And it's a little bit tricky where you've got a house plus outbuildings. And this is true of, probably at least 30 to 50 of these sites. There's a house and there's an old barn, and you really need a photograph of both. So probably what you do is you take a photograph of the house, and that's on the cover page, and then the photographs of the barns and other outbuildings are on the other pages, because you don't want to drop out the barns. Those are definitely significant, but you don't.
Thank you.
You usually.
That's right.
Right,
Not
right.
from a drone, has anybody used?
But you're right, there's way too much lawn in most of these pictures and sky also, and
So,
trees.
can I ask you, to just back up for a second too? So you had mentioned yesterday in our meeting, that you were keeping Sarah Linda appraised of where they were at. You guys were discussing, Landmark / Barrow, receiving their grant funds and being released from the project. So I know you and Sarah Linda, or
That is
Sarah
Sarah
Reynolds, are
Linda.
tracking that. Is there anything new that the history team needs to know on that front? Or is it just kind of a standby and you and Sarah will continue to?
Yeah, I can't speak for Sarah on that. She's been out of the office for 2 weeks now, so
Okay.
she, as I understand it, she applied for an extension from the Preservation League and got an extension until December 31st. And that's really why this thing landed on our, in our email on the 31st, because they were trying to hit that deadline, even knowing that it wasn't finished. So now I don't know what the cash flow is like. I asked Sarah towards the end of the year how much of the money had been spent, and she said they'd only billed once, and it was only like $6,000 or $7,000 out of 25. So by now, Holly spent, probably close to full time during November and December on the thing. So how much money they've spent, I don't know. But Sarah will have to. I don't know. I don't know about the timing or the money. Those are all Sarah, and when she gets back, she'll fill us in.
Is there anybody that like benchmarks them before they receive the next stage or the final stage?
I think it would be up to Sarah and Doug,
Okay.
and
That's
they,
right.
they'll probably ask us for our input if we think
Okay.
that, if they say that they're billing 90%, they're going to probably check with us and say, do you think they have done 90%?
Okay.
But that's just a guess. I've never, that didn't happen on the first part. They handled the whole
Right.
thing.
Okay.
Sarah Linda, as far as the proofreading, are there any, like when you have a Word document and you misspell a word, there's a squiggle line underneath it? Is there anything like that on this or not?
This
So-
is a PDF document.
Okay.
It depends on what software you have. I ended up able to enter a sticky note in locations, but then when I tried to share that with other people, or when Sarah printed it, the sticky notes didn't come through. So
They
I
did
don't
come through
really
for me,
trust
just so you're aware. I did get your sticky notes in my version.
Right, some people,
Really appreciate
and
that.
I don't know if Ray got it, but when Sarah printed out my version with the sticky notes were not on the printed copy. So I don't know what's the best way to do that. I think,
What did this?
a sticky note is a little comment you can insert into a PDF.
Part of the program.
I know, but what did they incorporate in the sticky notes?
Oh, when I put a sticky note in, for instance,
Yeah.
I would say, if I saw a typo, I would put in a sticky note and then I'd
okay.
say typo, take out the apostrophe or something like that.
Or the
I
correct.
didn't have a whole lot. I'm sure if Donna read it, she'd have hundreds of them. But then again, it's not really our job to clean up their typos. So I'm really more,
No, but we want it to be accurate.
well, we want it to be accurate. We don't want it to be embarrassingly sloppy. It is their job to ensure that, but on the other hand, if they're not going to, somebody's got to do it.
So-
I don't know.
How does that bring us up to date on that?
On the survey?
Yeah.
Yes, except Donna, if you are willing to and interested in doing a little editing along those lines, I suggest that you talk directly with Holly because she's the one who's going to be reading the notes and making the corrections. And if you could communicate with her and tell her what software you have, or maybe, do a few things, like you could just do one page of it and put some annotations in, and then send that to her. If you can excerpt one page and see if she can read it, or see if she has any suggestions for what's the best way to edit it. And maybe it's just, do it by hand and scan it and send it to her. It's between the two of you. Why don't you work that out? Because I'm afar. I don't want to get in the middle of it.
Yeah, and he
So-
said like 200 pages.
It's 200 pages. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
Although the narratives in there are
Right
really,
here.
I used to do that.
I'm sorry, was there, Linda?
well, the narratives are only maybe a quarter of a page on each, for each property. So if you were to do just the narratives, that might be more like 50 to 75 pages, or maybe 100 pages, but it's not.
Maybe
not
two.
huge.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Okay.
Okay, well, I got to sign off, but anyway,
Oh,
good to
you
see
know
you
what?
all. And
You want to hear about Academy?
well, yes, okay, I'll stick around for a few minutes. Just tell me what's been going on. And I was really excited that Donna found this great newspaper article all about the founding of Academy Cemetery and when it was and the circumstances and everything. So I think that is really cool. And I did mark up the text of the brochure a little bit, just with some suggestions, but I was waiting on your information to finish that up. So if
Rich has redone some of it because we have.
okay, great. I mean, if it's all taken care of, that's terrific. Just send me a copy and I'll admire it.
So do you want to do a synopsis?
When we started on this project over 2 years ago, this is what we had from the town for, if you can see, this is what we had from the town in order to know where the graves were. And it was,
What's the matter with it?
well, it's all cursive, which is all right, but it's all very small cursive.
Uh-huh.
And it's illegible, and a lot of parts on this, it wasn't legible at all.
And it's probably not up to date, I'm guessing.
Oh, yes.
And
Oh, yes.
we did get help for the veterans from Ralph Armstrong, Kevin Armstrong.
Kevin and I.
Yeah, Ralph was my lacrosse coach. So anyway, this is what he had in 4 different sheets. So that, so we incorporate, and we use this as a reference.
Got a copy of the trees and.
All that. Well, what we've done now is we have finished our brochure.
Can you hand one to?
Yeah, I'll hand
Sarah
one,
Linda?
I'll hand one
Yeah,
to
Sarah Linda, yeah.
Sarah Linda over the airwaves, yeah.
If you send me your address, we'll mail one to you, so you have a one. that you
Yeah.
can touch and feel.
Sure, I would love that. I'll email you.
So
Okay.
This is close enough so you can see it. This is what it looks like. The front, the back.
One of these.
and then we fold out of the, each all of them. And then on the first couple of pages, you've got the directory with the last name, first name, middle, the vet designation, and the row and stone number. And then that's a map of the whole thing.
How
And then
many
we've
do you
got,
have, Donna?
the
How many do you
final,
have
page.
as of now?
Found quite a lot
How many
of them.
copies do you have?
Go into it.
No, you haven't done a big run or anything.
Oh, no.
Okay,
This-
that's all I want
this
to
is-
know.
This is still a draft.
Okay,
This is a semi-final.
A semi-final draft.
I love it.
Draft, but we have accurate, because Don has found a lot of this stuff, we have accurate date as to when the first burial is in the cemetery, when the property was set aside as property for it and everything else. So a lot of hunting. And,
Well, you're doing that. So this is I did an Rich set up an Excel spreadsheet for me. Okay. And it has the row and stone number, last name, first name, middle name, maiden name, second marriage, birth and death year, and then notes, and then the find a grave link. And on my spreadsheet, what I did is I highlighted in yellow anything where there are discrepancies, and there's a lot of discrepancies. There's inaccurate information on find a grave. I found one where the wrong obituary is posted, and that was by Arlene Reeves. The names just don't,
Really?
the names just don't agree, yeah. And and what I tried to do in notes is, and I did not start it at the very beginning of the list, but if parents or children were buried in the cemetery, I reference them and what row and stone number they're at also, because there's a lot of that. A lot of families.
When you finish
And,
that, can you get me a copy to put in the binder for Academy?
well, what we're ultimately working toward, I mean, we can give you a copy of this when it's finally done, but what we're ultimately working toward is putting this stuff, porting all this into a database.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
would be a searchable database. So that if somebody wanted to look up somebody, they could then just put their name in there
Wow.
and this will all pop up. And ideally, we want to have this thing on the town's website. And
Yeah.
ultimately, what we
Yeah.
want to do beyond this is we want to go back to Hun Cemetery and do the same thing
Right,
with Hun. So that can also go on.
and Remington Root and.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
But
I
with
mean, this
this,
has been over 2 years getting to
What do you
this
think you'd
point.
have to pay for that,
but
Lindsay?
with this, what I found in the
Congressional
very
network.
beginning, what I was doing is I was putting in the first name and the last name on the find a grave search. And then the name would come up. But what I started doing later on was just putting in the last name. And from there, I found people that we didn't record. They're listed on Find a Grave, but we have no idea where they're buried there. And then, of course, there's some that are illegible. So in the various columns, you might see a first name, but no last name. There's a question mark there because we don't know what the
Right.
last name is. So what I still want to do is take the information that you had sent Sarah Linda back a couple of years ago from DAR and go through and see if any of these unknown people, if I can find out what row at least they might be buried in the cemetery. And as we found, as Rich and I have gone through, there are some stones that were flat that we had to dig out, dig around
Just
so
to expose them.
we could expose them. So there might be others like that too, that we don't know,
Mhm.
and around the tree
And,
too.
yeah, and the thing is, the
Sure.
first stones, the first burials in the cemetery, were sort of haphazard until the judge stepped up and
Right,
presented, dictated an order in order for the cemetery. Other than that, before that, it was sort of haphazard. Now, the thing is, we may have graves on top of graves
Mhm.
here because of that, the early burials.
you
And
guys
we
will
have-
also be
and
able
we
to
have-
advise Peter, right? You're like, do you think you'll have from your
So-
observations and the data, it would be nice to have a hit list of stones that you believe need Peter Ellison's attention,
Yeah.
that you can funnel to the cemetery committee. And the cemetery committee can look at, because that's gonna be crucial, is the
Mhm.
liaising between
Well,
all of this, because cemetery committee is the one that's really, the public, obviously. Massive beneficiary of this, because,
Yeah.
Well, the
I-
thing is, since we started this project, there have been a lot of damage. There's been a lot of damage
know.
to a lot of stones down there.
what, 30, right?
Oh,
Wasn't it?
I have to take account, but the thing is, where there were stones on top of bases, the stones have been knocked over. The stones have been destroyed, so there's a lot of work that has to be done there to bring things back to where they should be. And there's a place there on one row, was it N, which is got a depression in the ground. But, and there's a planter put there.
Oh, yeah, the peony plant. I
A
think
peony
that's
or
the
whatever,
same. I think
but there's no
that's the same.
stone there. So whether that stone was removed, or the base was removed, or whatever, I don't know. And now we understand that today, to set a base on, for a stone on the, in a cemetery, the base is gonna be, concrete's gotta be pretty deep in order to have a good footing. You just can't put a.
Right, no, it's-
pour a
yeah.
Form and put something on top of it. It's gotta go down deep,
Yep.
so it's got a tank.
Yep, it's gotta get down the frost, below the frost line.
So you're looking 42 inches deep.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because Samuel Connor, who's the one that set aside this property, his daughter, she never had a stone. And there were others that didn't even have stones. So we don't know where they are. Whether they're
If
even
they are.
whether they're even in the cemetery
Yeah.
boundaries per se, where that, where the chain link fence is.
Well,
So,
I'm gonna
With,
sign off here, but congratulations on getting this far. This is a real accomplishment, and I will look forward to getting a copy, and I'll send you my address, Donna.
okay, good. And
That's what.
Oh, and I think those are great. Yes, so you showed me those a few weeks
Oh,
ago.
nice.
These are the row markers,
So long.
They're great.
so.
Nice.
So Kate was able to get a much reduced price on these, because normally, when she started going through the form, I guess she was filling out one by one, and she said, well, wait a minute, I'm gonna start a column and see if I can, there's an easy way to do this.
Oh,
What
Christ.
would have been $1,800, I guess turned out to be what, $1,200, like, something like that.
Yeah.
Because they said, yes, we can, since all we have to do is change this one letter or whatever at the end,
Sure.
so we got a pretty good discount.
Cody, did you see the sign well enough?
I did, yeah, and I was actually going to ask, those look like they're like regular road signs. I assume that they're gonna last quite some time.
Oh, yeah, these are very heavy duty aluminum. It's probably about a 1/16 of an inch thick. The sign has been printed and it's been laminated with a graffiti resistant laminate. Plus the fact that these things are gonna be put on the south fence along the old Westlake Road. And they'll be pointing in, so the face of these signs will be facing north. So they're not gonna get that much sunlight on them.
Yeah.
So they should last a good long time. And there are brackets that we got that'll hang these things securely onto the chain link fence.
Great,
So I'd like to just pick up some Loctite for the screws, and we're good to go.
those look great.
Yep.
So,
Cody, I can drop one of the brochures off, semi-final brochure off at the Historical Society, at the museum, if you'd like me to.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would love to get my eyes on it. They look great
Okay.
from afar.
Okay.
And you know, all of the information that you would really want in those, I feel like is in them. So
Yeah,
Just bear in mind that it's still it's not the final yet, but it's
Yeah.
getting a lot closer than it was.
yes, yeah, much closer. Yeah, because I have some homework for Leaf and Ray. They don't know it yet, but I've got a
They do
little,
now.
yeah, I got a little homework for them to do. To help me out with some of the veterans.
glad to do it.
So,
Can you drop one of these? Of Han, with where you drop. them
oh,
off?
sure,
Sure.
yeah,
We'll
yeah.
grab
I-
one off
there's-
the desk upstairs.
Yeah, we'll get,
Okay.
okay,
This
yeah,
thing has a
sure.
whole bunch of them.
Yes, yeah, we'll give you
What's
one
the-
of Han also.
Refresh
On
my
cemetery.
memory on the budget for producing that brochure.
Well, we had, originally they've been done down, at what is it, Quick Print or whatever on 332 there on South Main Street. And Sarah Linda found that Prism Graphics or Prism Ink across from Wegmans was printing, and she got a reduced price there.
Okay.
And when they printed out the ones for Hun, I had specified, 32-pound text paper. Well, they printed on a much heavier, which was very nice because it's got
Yeah,
a lot of weight to it.
Right,
And they didn't charge any extra for the heavier
Oh, nice.
paper.
Thing was, what, 136 something for,
Well,
what was it, 100?
Well, it's a, for the cost, yeah.
Yeah, for the cost of it,
Okay.
yeah.
But
Yeah. But
they did, it, and then, from what I can see, they did a pretty good job. I mean, I've known the proprietor of the establishment for a number of years.
Okay,
And because I used to ship everything out when they were in the old location. It
Okay.
used to be the shipping center.
Now,
Finger Lakes.
when you do finish these, they are going to be available at the cemetery, correct?
We don't have a
No.
waterproof box for anything at the center.
right. It'll be here at Town Hall on the rack in the foyer
Mhm.
and on my desk and, well, and any place else that you guys decide you want to take.
Well, we can, and what
We could give you some too.
Right.
I just, yeah, we would have them here. I know that I have seen like Eagle Scout programs, right, where they will build like a nice wooden structure that overhangs and you can have stuff inside of that. So I mean, maybe that's something just to put out there.
So, yeah, you're right. Like,
Yeah.
even if we had a kiosk that had the map behind plexiglass, so people could stand there and reference it.
Yeah.
I
And
think that would be
I
a
go,
better
oh, yep,
idea.
oh, we're over there.
If these are there, they might get.
Yeah, I'm with you, Pat,
And
right.
these are
To
gonna
get
be
something
expensive
printed
to
and
print.
laminated that they can. look
Yep,
at.
but they can't destroy and,
Okay, yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah.
People cheat and everything else here,
Yeah,
but, and the size of the sheet.
well, fortunately, Lindsay is our facilitator today. She's got nothing better to do, Parks and Rec just runs itself. But now she's heard our wish for,
Oh, if we had, yeah, but I think a kiosk would be good if you had a map there, because, I mean, we're limited as to what we can do for publication purposes for the map, but if we go bigger, then maybe I can dress it up a little bit bigger.
I love this. I mean, this is huge. This is really great. I bet you there are very few towns that have something this extensive.
throw more ideas out here, but if I was someone who was interested in looking at the map, I might want it on my phone, so when I'm walking around, so can we maybe get a QR
Sure.
code? Because I know you have done digital stuff
Yep.
as well, like this is all uploaded, correct?
Mhm.
I
Yep,
mean,
so
a
we could have it
QR
like-
So we
code
could put a
might be an
QR
option.
code.
Hit them from every direction, maybe.
Yeah, like have the map in the kiosk with a
Yep.
QR code
Put a QR
attached
code.
to it, so, instead of having to walk back and forth to keep referencing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an excellent idea.
What are you thinking, Cody?
No, I like that idea. And it could be hosted right on the town's website.
Yeah,
Because you need somewhere to host something like that, right? So.
Yep.
You'd have to get that set up first before making the final map with the QR code on it, but yes.
well, the thing is, when we finish with this, I'll have every page here will be a separate page that would be web ready. So that way you'd have like
Oh,
this
yeah.
here for the first page, and then, that would be the last page. But then you'd have a spread, kind of like you see in other things. But that way you'd have a listing. This would all be like, instead of 2 pages, it would be one long thing that would be on the website.
From us, as far as.
It's just a matter of, this,
Discussion.
we're starting somewhere, and we go from there, but like I said, we have it with a
We need to do it on the
searchable
2024,
database,
we can
then
pull 2 of them off on
it'd be
the
easy for people to find.
I think
their way
that's a
around.
good idea. Everybody's got a cell phone
Yeah.
and then keep these for just in your,
I'd love to see him hunt in
Yeah.
Academy, be like the.
somebody really interested would take one
Yeah,
of these
yeah.
and not Lloyd.
And then we can-
literally
So
ride
this is
it.
my
We can do this at
contribution
Wilmington
to the
Road.
meeting.
Because I want to make this thing
can't write.
web compatible, so if people want to print it out.
Yes, I can. That's all Sarah Linda.
8.5 by 11, then they can.
Yeah,
Right now,
I've got
it's
to,
11,
I wanna make sure it's
17, people don't have.
the minutes have a good report.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
And
no, you
one
don't.
thing-
Yes, I
one
do.
thing-
I've got quite a few.
No, you don't. I took the.
Oh, okay.
You don't anymore.
That's right. I think I put some on the rack too.
okay.
And I've got more under my desk to replace
Upon-
You
anything.
can take
Yeah.
those back up.
Okay.
One thing I think I'm gonna ultimately do too is join Find a Grave so I can upload things too, because in various family cemeteries, I have found some incorrect information also on Find a Grave. And I think the only way you can do that to correct it is either to take over your family's graves, because I copied some information on that. But when you go out to find a grave, it shows how many memorials there are and what percentage has been photographed. And according to Find a Grave for Academy, only 91% of the stones have been photographed. Because I did find a number of stones where there was just an obituary or an article. and
Well-
The stones were not photographed,
Yeah,
And-
Find a Grave
on
is
there.
not,
so.
do you remember I was trying to get a headstone for one of our veterans? And it got shot back to me because the VA said, oh no, there's a stone for that person. They went to Find a Grave. And it showed a stone for Benjamin. Yeah, anyhow. And
Benjamin Smith.
old memory. So no, this is not correct. This photograph is probably 10 years old. 10 years ago, the stone was barely legible. The stone is probably still there. I have to go back over and say, are they correct? Is that stone still extant? In their head, it's because it's on Find a Grave, it's there. There's a stone.
Yeah.
Now, which is kind of a BS answer because they're also supposed to provide a VA stone regardless of whether there's a private stone. Okay,
And when you say a VA stone, the VA pays for it? or-
yeah,
or is
they
it that-
provide,
Or is it that big
The
plaque
brass
that,
plaque.
there are actually, you have a couple options.
oh, okay.
You can have the
Okay.
ones that
Well-
set right in the ground, right? You can have one that's slightly upright, or you can have the plaque. And
Okay.
there's a couple different ways you can do that. But anyhow, yeah, the Find a Grave information is not accurate.
No, it's not.
And it's dated to whenever that photo was uploaded.
Mhm.
So, or even, I shouldn't even say uploaded, when it was taken. Because I'm sure there are cases where photos are taken and they sit around on a phone or a laptop for a while before they get, loaded up. So then, and I don't know how old Find a Grave is, but
Now,
we're getting
Find-
past a
Find a
decade
Grave,
now.
do you have to, can you put in the date of the photograph?
I don't
Is
know.
that part of the?
I don't know if it's metadata or not. Sometimes it seems like there is a date associated with
The
a,
metadata is only gonna be visible if you've got something that can see it, but on Find a Grave, it may not pull the metadata out of the image.
right,
And it's in going back before digital,
right.
you're not gonna have
Right.
metadata anyway.
Right, and in like, I'm sure a lot of towns, Richard, like ours, there's old photographs that they're using, that they're going, okay, well, we'll just load that, we'll scan it and load it. And like you say, then it's even, gosh knows how old it is.
Yeah.
So-
We found that even with because we went out and with a reflector in order to shine the light, to skim it
Yeah.
across the face, we found that some of these gravestones, you still couldn't read
Right.
what was on them.
Yeah, and that was the case with Ebenezer's. I know it's now, that's the name, by the way. It finally came to me.
Evidence is true.
But
It's illegible.
But the listing that Sarah Linda had sent to us a number of years ago, and I think it's before.
Oh, yeah, sure.
you, joined us. It was done by the DAR and the Genealogical Society that I think meets at the museum.
Yeah,
Cody. And so I do want to go back to there because what their listing did is on some of the stones, it did, if there was a saying on it or, verbiage on it.
Oh, nice.
there
They
was
recorded
information,
what
and
was
they
on
tried-
there.
They tried to record it as best as they could.
That's really nice, because
But there
then even
was-
if the stone is extant, but the language isn't.
Yeah, but there's still words where there were blanks
Yeah.
that, couldn't read what it
well,
said.
you
So,
couldn't read it.
yeah. So-
I'm gonna actually suggest to Karen that you guys become like the Graves Registry advisors for Academy. Mhm.
We dig ourselves into.
You've done
No pun
way
intended.
too good a job, way too good a job, right,
Well,
right?
we're still trying to figure out who decided Academy and not Lucas or Cooley or
Yeah.
one of the smaller
Right,
ones.
with like
Too
6
small.
graves. Hey, wait a minute.
Well, it could have been a Pine Bank.
No, we're not even gonna touch Pine Bank. They get their own association. They
Yeah,
can do
Pine
that.
Bank isn't town cemetery yet.
Right.
So-
just
All right,
for
so
mowing.
Yes, it
are
is.
you guys all good with your?
Oh, it is
To
now?
the extent that we mow it,
Right, I
but
was just gonna say
we're
just for
not-
the mowing.
But liability wise.
Okay,
Right.
so are you guys all good with your report?
Yeah,
Okay, and everybody knows about, I think we've covered this a couple times, that Lindsay is gonna be hiring a staff member to do the mowing, right?
yes,
So we had a problem, Pat, just real briefly, we had a problem with a contract mower,
Yeah,
damaging headstones in Hun and Academy.
Yeah,
Lowest bid kind of crap, and
sure,
that's what's.
who do you
dangerous
get
about
to mow lawns, right?
right.
All
So-
of them, all of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Nine,
what we're doing is we're going back to the old method of actually having a town employee who cares about what they're doing.
There you go.
So we have some control. over
Good
it.
idea.
yeah, yeah.
The last thing I want to share with you guys before we adjourn is
not quite.
you got something too?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll do this and then you do that. So the town board has decided to just kind of take a breath and inventory all the committees and teams within the town. Most of our committees, but not all, are mandated by law. That includes the cemetery committee. Okay, they're a full-fledged mandated by town law. The CIC was an umbrella that was created, a number of years ago, and had a whole bunch of other entities under it, including History Team. It was this week or next week, the town board meets. CIC is going to come back. They've been asked to come back and help the town board understand whether they need to continue to exist. Okay, that does not mean the entities under CIC. It just means CIC as an umbrella. Okay, so I had to attend this meeting as town historian, and I spoke for the history team and explained, the work that is done, the value of the work that is done, and why you want to keep the history team. That took longer for me to just say it than it did in the meeting.
Mhm.
They all understand the value and importance of the history team and are very appreciative of the work that goes on because they know that it is a great value. I mean, literally $1 value. Like, I wouldn't want to think if we had to write a grant to pay you guys what you're really worth for what you've done, how big that
Okay.
grant would have to be. Right?
I can retire again.
So I think the town board knows that they can go to the bank, okay, on the history team. And they the same way with the tree team. And though the cemetery committee has a substantial budget, they also see the value of all of this stuff. And Parks and Rec and how everybody's pulling together. So you may hear in the future news about the future of the CIC, but don't let that
Don't
worry
get
you
alarmed.
at all. It has something to do with us.
Okay. Good.
Ray,
I would like you or your significant other to make copies of,
the thing that we want to send to Holly. Is that the thing for Holly from yesterday?
yeah,
Okay,
but it's a copy for everyone.
okay. Copy for everybody on the history team.
Yeah,
Okay,
because I don't think they got it.
all right. Let me see if I can actually grab one of the, do
We got
you want to do it
with,
right now, Ray?
Huh?
Do you want to do it now or do you want it for the next meeting?
You could, no, because I got a couple, a
Okay.
copy.
All right, I will make copies and distribute it the next.
These are the ones that that were eligible.
Oh, okay. I've already
Did you get a
seen
chance to
all
look at that?
All of them.
Okay, this whole sheet, all these pages are all of.
No.
Oh,
The ones marked, just marked,
uh-huh.
are the ones that we got. That's all. That's
Oh.
all they supplied us.
Oh, okay, okay.
And
Hey, Lee.
Ones are with a mark.
What is this?
Oh, it's a list of all the town, all the addresses in the town of Canandaigua.
Okay,
And Ray marked with a dash the ones that were in the report that Sarah Linda was talking about, and then
Yep.
what the asterisk ones are the significant. eligible one.
Eligible.
And then the ones with asterisks are the eligible ones.
Let me give you this one, because it's marked.
Do you want
But I
Rich
want
to
it
show you so that you get an idea of what it is? Show him,
Yeah.
show Cody so he can see on the
Um,
screen.
So these are just the 100-year-old homes,
Okay,
Just
just,
the
Okay.
100.
You got it, okay?
Okay.
you know, Bill and Sherry Dreesen, they're gonna be selling their place pretty soon.
Yeah, I heard.
Okay.
Down in- I just texted him though, I guess he's
Yeah.
doing okay, but she's not.
So if nobody has anything more, I want to thank Patty for joining us, and we
Yeah,
didn't
excited.
get John Robertella here, as noted from your email. I will double back with Sarah. I don't have his email either.
Oh, you don't?
no.
Okay. So Sarah does.
Probably somewhere, yeah, because she would have had to have.
You want-
Because she said in
I
one
can-
of the
I can
emails she
wait,
sent to
but
all of us, she
Yeah.
said she would
A lot
add
of mine-
Karen
because
and
they
Patty
got
and
marked.
John
Yeah.
to her list so
Yeah,
that they get
and
future emails.
He was on town planning, he was secretary for the planning board, so he
Oh,
he
okay.
exists somewhere in her files.
Okay.
And I spoke to him. You've seen John's most recent book, Cody?
yeah, we sold out of it.
Yeah,
Owner.
yeah, it's brilliant. It's a really great piece of work. I mean, so we'll get him to the next meeting. Ray, do you have anything more?
No,
Okay. Then I'm going to ask that we adjourn the meeting. Cody, thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, thanks for,
Thank
you.
this is a better time for me, so I appreciate it.
okay,
Good. It's better
All right,
for
we'll
us.
keep
It's
doing the
better
9
for
o'clock.
us, too. 9:30.
9:30, sorry, 9:30.
Yeah.
I like 9:30 better too. I gotta have my coffee before I can.
Yeah, and I'll drop these off in the next
Are
couple of
in
days,
these
Cody.
reports with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, bye, everyone.
Bye.
okay, so yeah.